cue the music, and well, it would have been up already. So yeah, I don't think either of us are going to bring peace to the Middle East just by the
Uh, it's
yeah it the biggest thing that I think is being overlooked by so many people is that these people have been fighting for thousands of years.
Mhm. And what exactly are they fighting about, Yergz?
The location of where they're at the northeast corner of Africa, the southeast corner of Europe, and the west end of Asia is and always has been. I mean, now with air travel, much less so, but still is a huge crossroads for trade. And so, trading with Africa without crossing the Mediterranean, trading with Asia, getting in and out of Europe, getting in and out of Africa, getting in and out of Asia from those other two locations, it's always been through the Middle East and that point.
So it's about
Um,
money. So it's about
uh,
money?
it's international business, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and by it's kind of like a turnpike, and that area is the toll booth. But it's
And
also where you can just leave a lot of goods. Like Europe can go to, today Israel and that area and Jordan and what have you, um, and just leave their stuff as opposed to taking it all the way to China because now they can trade with the Chinese in Israel as opposed to China going all the way to Europe and vice versa.
okay, the so but what are they fighting about? That there's not enough room for everybody to trade with whoever they want to trade with?
I also can't help but think that at this point, when Ben Shapiro did that video, um, he's a conservative. He's a very conservative.
Hmm.
Not as far crazy as Dan Bongino. And I think I like Ben Shapiro because he's very well educated and very briefed. When he starts talking, he knows what he's talking about,
Hmm.
even if it's got his slant. And that's the problem. That's why I know what I'm doing is right. There's a very educated guy making a video that's uber pro Israel. And according to that poll on Facebook, he's wrong.
Yeah.
That's not what the world's thinking. And he says it's because the left is lying and that these were five lies. And just as a historian, I'm just sitting back and going, no, that's not a lie. Maybe there's a tweak to it, or maybe there's your tweak to it.
Yeah.
Because after all, when you find something on the internet, it's got to be true. And so here I
Right.
am, a fellow conservative, finding Ben Shapiro's video. They must have been five lies.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's over money and land for to manage that money on, historically, but more modern times, I think it's to a point where it's more about ego than anything. I mean, look at why
I'm
people still support Donald Trump. They do it
you
because they don't want to admit that they've been hoodwinked. That's the only
and I,
reason you got left.
and I'm so glad, and we did not coordinate this discussion, but I'm so glad you mentioned ego, because one of the people that I have gone to throughout my life is a person that not everybody, shall we say, respects. She ran for president. Her name is Marianne Williamson, and she wrote a book back in the day
I
called
know
A
that name.
Return to Love. And what she wrote about then was how mistaken we have been in what? In valuing trade and valuing money. And we've connected our egos and our definition of success to what we possess, to what we
Right.
acquire. And her whole thing is, and, I can quote from her book here, we are, this isn't a quote, but we are put here, as it were, for service. We are put here to use goods, our acquisitions or whatever, for service, not for acquisition in and of itself. And we've made that mistake. Our egos depend on acquiring things, material source of things, power, as opposed to serving other people. And she says a miracle worker is an artist of the soul. She also argues, and one of the things I've always found interesting is she also argues that while the United States has a Department of Defense, we need a Department of the Peace. It's one thing to be prepared for conflict, and it's another thing to support ways in which we can promote peaceful living among us. We need a department with people who are smart and dedicated to figuring out ways that people can get along better. We need a Department of the Peace,
So
which
that
I think
is
is an
supposedly
interesting concept. It sounds very woo-woo, don't you think?
no. We have one already, and the point of one of the reasons why it's failing is the branding. We have a Department of Defense, which was softened up when it was brought to an actual cabinet level position before being the Department of War.
Right.
The Secretary of War was actually not a member of the cabinet. Well, they were, but they were not like I forget how it was not the same status as what today's Secretary of Defense is. And war was changed to defense because we're not going to go attacking anybody. We're going to defend ourselves. We have a Department of Peace. It's called the Department of State, but nobody knows what the hell that means.
Exactly.
Everyday people don't know that statesmanship, statehood, diplomacy is about establishing or maintaining the peace. If they did a little bit better in some of the school before they took to Facebook, they would know that.
Right.
But so we have a Department of Peace. It's just not labeled that. And in fact, so many other departments are geared towards that. Department of Commerce, because in some countries, commerce and state are actually the same cabinet. In many of the ministries, instead of cabinets, like Great Britain has, ministries, and other countries have ministries as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to secretaries. It's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So Foreign Affairs, that's State Department. Trade, that's the Commerce. They're combined.
Right.
Where we have two secretaries for that. And neither of them are labeled peace because it's, 150 years ago, that was something that was known, that it's what their mission was. And that's been lost a long time.
So we need new branding.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's there already. You know, I think he's right to do it. President Biden has recently started it's not a cabinet position, but it's an office for studying gun violence. Isn't that the Justice Department?
Well, maybe that needs new branding as well.
And yeah.
But let's get
Yeah.
to something we promised our audience. I
Sure.
was intrigued when you were talking about inviting a gentleman to either host his own show or co-host with you, and you presented me with the phrase anger porn.
Yep.
Tell me what that means. Tell me about this guy. Tell me what's his deal. And, maybe we'll have him on. Maybe we'll have him a guest here. But tell me what he. Tell me about him.
As I was beginning, or as I was developing Yergz Radio, I looked for other podcasters that had interesting topics and methods and what have you, that could also be interested in furthering their own audience by giving me
Joining you,
episodes
right?
to what you do with Be Inspired.
Right.
And Dave and I, we had to realize, it was Facebook where we found each other in a podcasting group, and I was just immediately fascinated with what he does with his show called Outrage Overload. And one of the things I talked about in our call with him last night, was that without intentionally steering Yergz Radio in this direction, look at everything that I've got.
Mm-hmm.
My own show, which tries to bring some positivity to politics.
Mm-hmm.
Your show, which brings inspiration to our hometown. Chris Staffelt and the Life Edge. Your two guys, Chris or Corey, Sam, and Dan, and your two dads. Everything is very positive. That wasn't why I started Yergz Radio.
Why did you start Yergz Radio?
Just one more platform for up the middle.
Okay.
One more way for people to get up the middle. When I was doing only doggy traders, I still am a student of a company called Think Media. It's the guy who literally wrote the book on YouTube. He's a Christian. He's just a Christian and a tech guy. And he started YouTubing by live streaming his church services to the congregation who couldn't make it to church. And he went through the roof. His methods and what have you were successful to a point where he actually started a media company teaching people how to do that same thing. And he says to use your social media to steer everybody to your YouTube channel. And I said, well, what if my audience isn't on YouTube? And this, for doggy traders, a more business one, I said, what about LinkedIn? Mm-hmm. And I started live streaming to LinkedIn as well. And within months, I had 4 times the followers on my LinkedIn page than I did my YouTube channel for the same topic. Mm-hmm. So doing the same thing for the podcast, I want to be on as many different podcast directories as possible. And then I thought, well, what about internet radio? It's a different style, and that, podcasting is on demand. I can go, subscribe as I do. I follow Be Inspired, and I can find any of those episodes right now and listen to them, like that. Replaying those episodes on the radio, it's much less on demand, but it's also much more constant in that whether you like it or not, here comes another episode.
Right.
And if I'm in the kitchen or if I'm, just sitting out in the yard, it could be something that if I don't want to focus on it, I can still have, something intelligent playing in the background. And then I said, well, I can't have one station with nothing but me. I'm going to look like an asshole. And I thought, well, that would actually be a good thing, is to help other podcasters expand their audience. And David was one of the ones that I found. And I'm just really impressed. To answer your question about the porn.
Yes.
Of course, people in society.
I want to talk about that. Yeah.
That love pornography, love it for a reason. And to a point where, you've mentioned addiction a couple times for various episodes. Yep. There are people who are addicted to porn.
Oh, yes. And there are people, and that's the point I want to make.
And or sex. And he used that name, and actually he admits readily that this is not his coining of the phrase, but anger porn is just so, and he and I talked about this too, is that he started our conversation last night by basically taking a survey, which I thought was also brilliant, of how I found his show and so on and so forth. And he asked me what episode I liked the most. And frankly, I didn't remember a certain episode, because I remember my biggest takeaway from his podcast is that I went into that podcast thinking it's anger porn and everything that's in social media. And what I learned is something horrifying.
Go.
It's not in social media. It's in our life. Yeah,
We, yep,
I have two cousins who haven't talked to each other since April
we are
because
addicted.
of politics.
We are addicted to being outraged. We are addicted to being angry. We are addicted to taking sides. We are addicted to competition. And competition can be a very, very healthy thing. It can be fun. It can be, enhancing in terms of skills and all that. But it can be really ugly and brutal.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the mean girls,
yeah, yeah,
in junior high school. And
yeah.
so, and it's so much easier to be angry than to find a solution, than
Yes,
to figure out what to do instead that creates rainbows and flowers and good feelings and whatnot. It's so much easier to hate. So what do we do about that?
so that's what he in his intro. He says
It's
that
the ego,
it's such.
isn't it?
It's
Isn't
yeah.
it?
We're back to that. We talked about that in the last episode. How that's a lot of life's problems. But David talks about like when I said it wasn't an episode, it was a concept. He also asked me, what he can do to improve the show. And I said, that's hard because if I just sit and listen to you and not knowing what you're trying to do, I'm going to go, oh, this guy's kind of, he's very low key. He's very soothing.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of boring.
And you know what?
And
You and
that's
I
what he
talked.
needs to be, or
Yes,
he's going to screw up his own concept,
exactly.
meaning
Well,
that he's going to prove himself wrong.
you and I talked about this before we even began, that we promised each other that we were not going to just yell at each other
Yeah.
in debate. We weren't going to manufacture outrage.
Right.
We weren't going to manufacture differences, because even though we knew that that's what people like,
Right.
if we were yelling at each other, we'd have probably more listeners,
Right.
right?
Which we're actually
Because,
growing rather well, by the way.
oh, tell me about that. No,
Um,
maybe after the
yeah,
show.
this
Yeah.
is no. I think I can pull it up quick. I might have to sign out of my. Yeah, I do. And on that, remember that new feature that Spotify gives, where it shows you how many impressions
Yes.
you've been in front of. We are kicking my ass. Um, uh, because I have about 1,800. And keep in mind, that was only made available to me on my initial profile last week.
Okay.
But our joint profile of both sides now has been in front of, oh, I don't have a drum roll. Damn it. I think I do in the sound effects. But I don't know. It's this one. Oh, there's a drum roll. There's a drum roll. Did you hear that? Did I get it good?
I didn't hear a drum roll, but you might
What?
have heard a drum roll.
I did, but oh, that's because it's on preview. Hold on, there's some technical shit I got to do. Let's try it again.
There we go.
There we go. All right, we are now at 10,412 impressions in the last 30 days,
No kidding. That's
and we've got
amazing.
a total of 86 plays. We're up to 7 followers. Um, Average audience size in the last 7 days is 18.
Yep,
So I mean, that's all suggesting growth.
that's
And
good.
number of plays yesterday was 3. Our biggest. I like to try to with my own. The last day that nobody listened was September 1st for me. And
Okay.
that's another reason why I rushed to do that episode last night, was because I wanted to get something out there that I knew they get an alert. Hey, there's something new from up the middle. You haven't seen this in a while. Even if it was that 90-second episode saying,
Exactly.
hey, here's why I haven't been in touch. I've been doing all
Yeah.
this other shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is going to be a busy week for me because you're going to hear a lot more from me. Um, it got people, and it kept my streak going. Um, we're both definitely, I only have 1,800 impressions in the past week. And I really think one of the things that's helping us with Both Sides Now is Both Sides Now, in that it's the verbiage is also, as you and I both know, the Joni Mitchell song.
Yes.
Um, and so it's something that I think is searched more frequently. Also, this is a slightly newer. I mean, mine is May, so it's still a new podcast. But Both Sides Now for us is newer. I think there was a bit of a push by Spotify, and we got those impressions that we did because it was a perfect storm. It was just everything just worked well, and so yeah, we're getting a message out there with regards to, and that goes back to, while I'm real happy with the programming of Yergz Radio, is that your show is very positive. This show is very positive. David, everything is just so positive. That wasn't intended, but it's what's coming to fruition. And we're going back to look at that poll with Israel and Palestine. I think what what we're all doing is what society needs and kind of sort of wants, but just doesn't know it yet. Because as he said, it's easy for Dan Bongino to come on and be all pissed off right away.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, you're going to love this one. I can't wait to show you this. And then he sits there for 5 seconds, letting the anger build up in you.
Yep.
If he can't wait, start talking. But he pauses like that. I don't have to tell you. Those pauses in a speech, those pauses in any sort of presentation lets the audience,
Catch
digest
up.
what you've just said.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if it's anger,
Yep.
that's, if you've worded it properly already, if they know who you are, in Bongino's case,
So
then
what do we have
it's
to
just fine.
offer? What do we have to offer in terms of adrenaline, maybe, or in terms of, I don't know, serotonin? I'm not good with the
So that's
chemistry.
one of the things he and I talked
What do
about.
we have to offer to replace the adrenaline and the cortisol that comes with anger?
Well, you're look at you right now.
Go ahead.
And that's one of the things that I pointed out last night, and David agreed with, is that there's a difference between anger and passion.
Okay.
And just in you asking me what we have to offer, you said it a couple of times. It wasn't just one question and done. You also got a little jittery. You didn't just sit there and look into the camera and ask, "So what do we have to offer?" Stop. You couldn't sit still.
No, I
You're doing a
can't
little
sit
wringing
still.
your hands a little bit and charging yourself up. That's not anger, and that's not what he's talking about. That's
Yeah,
what is needed.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
one thing being
And
angry and another thing being passionate.
I think what else is needed is a realization of the real. And I said this before. Maybe it was in the last episode. Maybe it was in this one. But what we need to do is get away from serving ourselves and dedicate, recognize that it's service to others. It's
Yeah,
service to improve your community, your place of work, your relationships, or whatever, to get out of our effing selves
yeah,
into an acknowledgement that that really doesn't lead anywhere in the end. That we are here on this planet, we are here in this moment to serve, to serve,
yeah,
to serve, and not just to acquire, and not just to use, not just to manipulate, but to serve somehow the greater good. Now, I'm a level 5 on the Kohlberg scale of moral development. There's no question about it. But I think we need to recognize how stupid we've been, or how selfish and full of ourselves we have been, rather than acknowledging the worth of service. Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Same thing. And we've got to bring that home somehow.
So, what you actually alluded to it, Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you know who that is. He's
Yeah,
a social media influencer. I hate using that word, but
I know.
he is. I
Yeah.
mean, it's what he does now. He was an immigrant as a child, I think, or his parents were. Is Serbian, I think, Serbian American, um,
Mm.
from New Jersey originally, and or at least to New Jersey, whatever it is. He grew up working in his dad's liquor store, and as an entrepreneur himself, he would make $10,000 a month as a kid
Wow.
with a store, a small like kiosk at the shopping mall, selling
Okay.
baseball cards.
Okay.
When he became a certain age and he could work in his dad's store, he had to give that up so that he could help his dad in the store and make $140 a week.
Uh-huh.
But it's his dad; he's not going to argue.
Right.
Well, he goes back to working for himself and his partners with his brother, and now they've got a media company. And like Sean Cannell, who wrote that book about YouTube, he writes about social media. And he says about podcasting is that if you're into podcasting or video podcasting, to have a camera and a mic in front of your face, you're in it for the wrong reason. You need to be in it to serve your audience,
Yes. Yes.
and or you're going to fail anyway. Because if you're in it just to hear to say what you want to hear,
Right.
nobody's going to listen.
Right.
And he's very intellectual. And then he also says, after having just said that, he also says, stop creating content for likes.
That's like
So,
artists need to do their art
yeah,
and not do art in order to sell it. And
but not
that's,
forget about
see, I
that you're
know,
doing
I
this for your
know.
audience.
Yes.
So
Yes.
he's
Yes.
not contradicting himself. You've got to look deeper into what he's saying. Don't just do shit for likes. Do shit that people are going to do it for
Right.
the engagement.
Right.
Do it for the fact that I love that when I look at the analytics, I love that when we have a 25-minute episode or a 32-minute episode, people are here for 31 minutes.
Wow. That's
And
pretty amazing.
that's damn good.
That's that's really amazing.
That's damn good.
That's really
So
amazing.
we are kicking my ass. Um,
Speaking of time, where are
yep,
we?
we are there. So
Can I give you? I'm just looking at my book here,
yeah,
A Return to Love, and Marianne Williamson, and I'm going to quote a little bit. How's that?
go ahead.
Cut me off whenever you want. But as I said before, miracle work. She says a miracle worker is an artist of the soul. There's no higher art than living a good life. An artist informs the world of what's available behind the masks we all wear, and that's what we're all here to do. So there you go.
Yeah.
We
I
need
like
to be
the
real. We need
reference
to
to
be
yes.
real. We need to be honest. And we need to shine and be passionate, as you say, about
Right,
things that are of service to other people.
right. Big takeaway, huge difference between anger and passion.
Yes, very good. That is a good takeaway. And I'm Jane Stahl.
And I'm Yergz. Thanks for
And
joining
we
us.
are both sides now.
See you next time.
Okay.